Newgarden around the outside. This is mind-blowing. Is it possible? No, it's not. Contact. Both of them crashing.
Emilio Castro-Neves comes to the start-finish line. Clint checkers out, and then there were four. Emilio Castro-Neves joins the four-time winners club.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the More Than May podcast. I'm Jake Langdon.
And I'm Alan Langdon.
And we are back after a great race at Phoenix Raceway, one of the better short ovals we've had. And for some reason, these hybrid engines with this car have really been successful on short ovals, leading back to, you think about Milwaukee and Nashville, the finale last year, onto this. Newgarden taking the win after a really awe-inspiring performance by Christian Rasmussen. But let's start at the top. With qualifying. Before we get into that, of course, we're going to give you a preview of Arlington this weekend, the Java House Grand Prix of Arlington, as well as news of the Freedom 250-mile layout that was just announced on Monday. So quite the news week for us on top of that. So let's hop right in, Alan. What were your thoughts during qualifying and practice?
Good overall. Just to help some context, in terms of qualifying, we did a single lap speed average versus like the traditional time-based kind of free-for-all method. So I think that always creates a 500-esque like suspense around you have one opportunity to kind of clinch your spot there versus like the gradual removal of folks. But then, like you said, I think short ovals have really been IndyCar's bread and butter. Again, ironically, kind of a very older style type track and more like IndyCar's roots, even back to like the IRL days. So interesting to see like that be kind of the formula that the hybrid does well in, but certainly created some really good on-track performances. Yeah,
I mean, I think I saw NASCAR Man tweet out that there's like 17 lead changes or whatever during this race, yet we've only had 6 lead changes on road courses since the hybrids were put in. So it's on track at least. So I definitely think that for the time being that these courses have to become a bigger and bigger stable. And with a performance like this, I think they will be. But some notable things. So during practice, you had Rosenquist wreck pretty bad. That was pretty significant. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to qualify. Started down the back, but ended up salvaging his day with a P12. And then Will Power wrecked during actual qualifying, so he had to go to the back as well. So unfortunate for them, but they were both at times, showed a lot of pace. Obviously, Power, as we'll get to later, was in the contention to win the race. And then on top of that, Malukas and McLaughlin locked out the front row. And then on the other side of it, you had a really, really impressive. Or wait, it was Newgarden, right? Yeah. Malukas and Newgarden. And then you had a really, really impressive qualifying performance by Ray Hall in third, and then Mick Schumacher in fourth. Unfortunately, Schumacher's day was kind of derailed by one of the guns, the pit stop guns that went out, so that cost him an extra 10 seconds. I think that cost him a lap, and really wasn't in contention after that. But what else did you see from the day, Al?
No, I think you bring up RLL. I think it's a good kind of interesting call out for like the first 2 sessions of the year. We have 2 teams that have traditionally been again on the lower tier back end of speed and both qualifying really well. I think to me it's a reassuring point to see that IndyCar is the disparity is getting tighter and tighter. I mean, we kind of grumble about the technical alliances and how that might influence the lower half, but to me it's not a bad thing to see like cars again. Like you saw a lot of like interviews with Ray Hall. Traditionally, that team has been really bad at short ovals. One of their Achilles heel, but yeah, I mean having 2 historically kind of less speed teams with Dale Coyne and then now Ray Hall both qualifying pretty well again in the top 6. I think it's cool to see like some changes in strategy. Certainly, again, keeps folks on their toes. Beyond that, we'll get into it now, but definitely a lot of on-track passing. I would argue that Rasmussen probably contributed to a good chunk of that. I think over 60 on-track passes by himself alone. But yeah, I mean, when those kind of cars have the downforce they do, these guys are playing in what we call a multi-lane race. So one of the gripes and hard things with ovals is like if everyone just kind of follows a parade. But you saw guys going 2, 3, 4 wide and being comfortable with that well into the stint with marbles on the outside and then with tires getting looser. So like that is what you need to see, and what makes ovals great is when you have the ability to make moves both above and below the car.
Yeah, and on top of that, having tires that degrade at an efficient rate, and you have that difference. And you saw that people were joking that Rasmussen was refusing to fuel save, and he was just burning through tires. I mean, he did an extra pit stop than a lot of guys, and yeah, it was funny. Yeah, him and let me see. Yeah, he finished with 5 pit stops, where a lot of the field did as well, but some guys finished with 3, even like Kyle Kirkwood, so it's just 2 different strategies there. But it was fun to see those. Not only were those different strategies with pitting, but guys doing overcuts and undercuts, and he was obviously very successful with that. But his patience got the best of him. But before we get into that, Newgarden, takes the win there at the end. This puts him in the championship lead. It's his 2nd win in a row on ovals after the season finale last year, and in his 33rd win all time. It also moves him into 2nd all time among Penske drivers. But the most notable stat, I believe, was that this ends the streak of over 100 or 620 days of Alex Palou in the championship lead. Like, that's just surreal to me. I mean, that's about as long as we've been doing the podcast, if I'm being honest. So really exciting to see a little bit of change. Unfortunately, it has to be Newgarden.
Yeah, no, literally. For all the cars that were in and out of this race and all the ones that were leading, like, it's, again, I think our disdain towards this man is not new to the pod, but yeah, just again, it's certainly his bread and butter. I think even within those 33 wins, I think over half of them, if 18, are all on oval or short oval. So certainly a piece that, again, a lot of his Newgarden's best talent is the short ovals. And again, I think it's rather ironic that Malukas, who's probably the 2nd or 3rd best short oval driver with Rasmussen filling out that top 3, all on one squad. We had a discussion either offline or maybe on the pod as well about Penske, again, adding Malukas to their roster, dropping Will Power. And yes, I think Malukas has got incredible talent in the short oval, but at the same time, it is kind of it feels like a repetitive skill. I mean, if you want to dominate the short ovals, that's great, but there's only, a handful on the overall series?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I guess there's 5 total races. I think we calculated it's pretty much 6 ovals, 6 road, and 6 street in the current schedule. With a doubleheader at, obviously, the Indy 500, which is very different, and then you have the doubleheader at Milwaukee this year. So, I mean, you win 5 of those, I think it puts you, or at least do well in 5 of those. It puts you about, 1/3 of the way there. But I think obviously the road and the street courses have more similarities, so you would rather be better on those disciplines. But it is interesting to note that. But yeah, I guess diving into the incident report, a lot of drama coming out. First, the first incident of the day that caused the first yellow flag was Dennis Hauger, and he was getting, of course, as Christian Rasmussen was ripping through the field, he got right up underneath Hauger's back wing and really messed with the aerodynamics, and that ended up causing that wreck there, or him spinning out. But the most impressive part was that he didn't hit the wall. I mean, I think I heard David Land call it like toe mater. I mean, he was going backwards down the back straight there, and it was just so funny to see him. I mean, optics of it were crazy, but the fact that he was able to save that was really impressive, especially for someone in his 2nd race in an IndyCar.
Yeah, no, I think I think the fact that in a lot of the broadcasts we'll replay it over and over again in slow motion really discredits the fact that like those movements and moments happen in a split second. Like, again, you're driving normally, you kind of have an idea someone's behind you, but all of a sudden your car just lifts out from under you, and you've got to make these aggressive full wheel turns to avoid. I think it was incredible. You have certain guys like a Pato Award that are known for their quick hands, but I think for Hauger, that's a huge move to avoid like ending your day and then instead finishing again wasn't great, but 15th. So yeah, for as much as you can, again, with a spin like that and a rough kind of average qualifying at 22nd, I think this Hauger has got a good chance of Rookie of the Year for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to say right there. When you're fighting for the Rookie of the Year, I think it's really important that you have, salvageable results and you don't have DNFs. And just a moment like that, we could be looking back at the end of the year and just be like, okay, wow, that could have been the difference points wise if you saw last year, right? It came down to just a handful of points. So you never know what it's going to be like until you get out there. But anyway, The big events of the day we of course haven't mentioned was, first off, Alex Palou wrecking out on that first restart, running into Rinus VeeKay, and was really a lot of contention about who was responsible and who if anyone should have been penalized. Regardless, their days were both kind of ended, but kind of give you a visualization of what happened. Alex Palou was on the restart, and I think Ray Hall just passed him. He was around, eighth or so in the field, and Rinus VeeKay was trying to make a move on the outside, and he swept up the track, Palou did, and really went, instead of being in that first groove, it was kind of a 2-groove track, but not perfectly. He worked his way up the wall, and because of a neglected spotter, he wasn't able to really identify that there was someone behind him. Ended up obviously jamming his front wing into the wall, and ended his day pretty quickly there. Let's hear from him, and then we'll discuss.
I don't know. I haven't been able to see it. I just, I don't know if I just squeezed someone or someone was trying to get there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't think there was anybody there. Need to see if there was really that space or not. But yeah, I'm fortunate that we ended up in the wall so early and not even trying. But it's racing.
Yeah, I think Palou, you'll see, he isn't one of the fiery types in IndyCar. Compared to like a Santino or a Newgarden or otherwise, like even in an incident that may have not been his fault, like you're not going to get a lot of fiery action. Like, to your point, Jake, it's an interesting point because we discussed this before the pod, but like with the double header, Joey Logano, again, Penske driver for NASCAR, was also on the broadcast, and he provided some really interesting like feedback, or I guess his perspective on who has right of way in racing. Where like IndyCar, typically you have a little bit more freedom for the guy in the back to kind of make a move or own some of that space. Whereas again, at the end of the turn, VeeKay had his front wing right about the rear tire of Palou, so enough of, again, a body length. But on the NASCAR side, they usually preference over the guy in front. So it's interesting to see like someone's perception may vary based on what racing they're used to. But I agree with you. I think overall it can chalk down to just a spotter error, unfortunately.
No, yeah, I think you have it backwards. The NASCAR guys were all kind of arguing that the guy at the front, like running, I don't know if, I guess I didn't hear exactly what you said, but if they run him up into the wall, like it's the person in the front's fault. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, but that was what they were kind of saying. But on the IndyCar side, I think there is some more onus on the guy at the back to give them space. So there was definitely debates over who is truly at fault. I really do think it lies in the gray area when you talk about a guy, kind of in between the first groove and that second groove on the track and pushing one up the track. But realistically, just a really unfortunate day for Palou. Was probably going to, he was favored to win. Was probably going to have a really good result. And fortunate for us, it opens up a lot more interesting storylines as we head into the next few weeks, though. And anyway, hopping to the next incident, the race deciding incident was this wreck between Power and Rasmussen. So really what happened was Will Power was in the lead. His tires were falling off. Obviously, Rasmussen had the best car of the day. And as Power was, really expertly blocking Rasmussen, doing a really good job of cutting off his draft, his clean air, Rasmussen got a little desperate and made a move to the outside and got squeezed, very similar to VeeKay, honestly. Ended up hitting the wall and then puncturing the tire of Will Power, the right rear, with his front wing, ending his day. And, Rasmussen was able to restart, but his car was just not nearly as good as it was, and he fought pretty hard, but then eventually ended up falling after hitting the wall again to the back of the lead lap.
Yeah, again, 2 points. Similar-ish incident with VeeKay and Palou, where you have another car in the wall, and the rules of physics don't like to have hard objects with there, so there's going to be some damage. It was honestly impressive to me that Rasmussen's front wing survived not only this incident, but many other ones throughout the day, that whereas Palou's basically snapped off the minute he had some wall contact. But yeah, super unfortunate. Again, nothing that malicious by any means, just kind of a fading line where like Power couldn't have as sharp of a turn where the tires are worn out, where Rasmussen was a bit more comfortable getting the upside. And then, yeah, it was interesting too, because like with it happening in Power with a tire puncture and having to go to the pits, it caused the yellow. So there was about 2 or 3 laps during caution where you can hear the chatter between Rasmussen and his crew of like, is the car okay? Because again, there wasn't anything super visibly damaged. The wing was still on, the tires were still intact. There wasn't any like tire pressure loss, but you could definitely sense something was up just by the force and the rattle of the car after it made contact with the wall. And for the first like lap or two, it looked like Rasmussen almost had it. Like the car was still functioning, he was still making good turns, but I think with the aging tires plus probably some lack of aerodynamics or suspension damages, you could just see him kind of gradually fall and really just plummet those last 2 or 3 laps and finished 14th, unfortunately. Again, just basically surviving that last lap.
Yeah, we'll hear from both of them right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's very clear what happened, right? We were the class of the field today. The best car out there. You know, I was so happy with the car, and yeah, you can't just run people into the wall, which was what happened today. He ran me straight into the wall, and after that I had damage, and I was just, I think, like lower wishbone front, upper, lower wishbone on the rear, and a toe link, which obviously some of that was probably from after, but the car was just impossible to drive after that. And yeah, I just did what I could to salvage a day and not crash the car, but just frustrating, man, so frustrating, because we should have won the race today and obviously didn't. But
in my view is I should have just left him some more room. You know, it was my spotter called, like I cleared him initially, then obviously he kept coming a bit, and you know, if I heard he's got a wing on you, it's on me. It's on me. I can't blame anyone but myself there. It was for the win, so you're going to keep it tight, but they should have given him more room, simply.
You know, I want to focus more on the Power interview right there. You can really hear him discuss how, you know, at first on the radio he was angry. He felt like he should, like, somewhat angry at himself, somewhat angry at Rasmussen, because he felt like, you know, he definitely wasn't happy that he got his tires slashed, but at the same time, he knew that Rasmussen kind of has a reputation for not letting guys, you know, stay in front of him for very long, or blocking them very overtly. So it made sense that at first he was angry, but he also kind of realized that even though he was holding on to the lead there, that it was kind of futile. Like Rasmussen his car was just too good, so he should have just gave him a little more space, especially once he was able to get that slight gap. And that's where the gray area is, where you kind of have a gap, you're starting to get up to him, and then they kind of move their way up the track. So really unfortunate for him. That's 2 weeks in a row where he's had an incident during practice and qualifying and then during the race. So unfortunate finish for him and someone who looked like he had a chance to podium.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no shock. I think the stats were for Rasmussen. He's either had a podium or he's wrecked or DNF'd in his like 3 or 4 Opel starts so far with like Milwaukee and otherwise. So again, he has that personality of like, I'm going to win or I'm going to hit a wall. And it kind of reminded me of Pato O'Ward back in the day a little bit. There's prior to his heartbreaker against Newgarden, another 500 race, it was a turn 3 incident where he was on the, like a far outside lane trying to make a cut on it and just lost the tires completely and spun out. Yeah. So like it's interesting to see. And yes, I think reputation wise, there was a poll preseason where Rasmussen was voted unanimously as the least trusted driver.
Not unanimously, but very high majority, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, to wrap up the race, the big takeaways, like Penske's definitely have had pace across these tracks for years and continue to. You see this separation of the Honda strategies where, you know, Kirkwood and Armstrong, the best finishing Hondas, both do 3 stoppers, while the Penske's and all the other Chevys really rely on the pace of the cars. So it's nice to see that difference in ability. And then some results down the way, just giving some shout outs. Alexander Rossi in 6th, Marcus Armstrong in 5th, good performances by them. Graham Rahal with the top 10. Kiffin Simpson with a top 10 as well. And then, of course, like we said earlier, Felix Rosenquist coming back from wrecking the car before qualifying pretty hard and getting it up to 12th. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one little tidbit too. Like Rossi started 6th, finished 6th, but I think he hit every other position before that. I mean, he was all the way a lap down. He was all the way mid pack. Like he had, I believe, similar to Schumacher, either tire gun or other incident in the pits. So like he had some struggles there. It was surprising to see him finish that way that he did. And I also want a tidbit too, like the 4 versus 3 stop. I think at one point Rasmussen did his 4 stop during Scott Dixon's 3rd stop. Like it was literally, they were like, they were in the pit lane together. I'm like, Rasmussen doing an entirely additional pit stop beforehand. But yeah, I agree with you. I think having that variation in strategy, which you wouldn't think of much in like a short oval, is cool to see how those cars, again, Nick Yates, you had Kyle Kirkwood in the lead, but having to hold on and use tires when Newgarden had a faster car with clean tires. So
yeah, so in updated standings, Joseph Newgarden is now in first with 78 points. So just to give you an idea of the scoring system, the win here is 50 points plus 1 point for leading a lap. So he gets 51 total. And then you go down the list right there. Kyle Kirkwood with the podium is now in second at 73 points. And then down in third is Scott McLaughlin with 66. So Alex Palou now sits, where is he at fifth? So yeah. At 59. So lot of racing left to be had. There's nothing, that guy can't do, but it is nice to see a little change up. So now looking at our news roundup, not too much news, but one really big news point, which is the announcement of the Freedom 250 around Washington, D.C. It will be August 21st through the 23rd, and they just announced I'll display it on the screen, but it's the layout here that I'm looking at, and you see it's a 7-turn, 1.66 mile street course with the longest straight of 0.4. And some things to point out, of course, one side pit lane. It's not like the weird situation at Detroit where you have 2 different little pit lanes. So they were able to fit a full pit lane in there. You go right by the Capitol building, and you have some decent passing zones. I would imagine that 5 to 6 there, going into that 90 degree, or not even 90 degree turn, 7 is going to be a good place. And then, of course, that big straight between 1 and 2. What else are you looking at, Alan, here?
Yeah, I think especially that 2, 3, 4 kind of long straight into a series of turns reminds me a little bit of Detroit. And I kind of jokingly remarked, Stingray Robb is a character that doesn't do well at deceleration. So certainly interesting to see how that one might turn into a bottleneck. Yeah, it's hard to really look at scale off of an image like this, but I'm curious how wide the lanes are going to be and then how many their passing zones are going to be as well. I think transparently, we've all kind of expected this track to be more of an aesthetic and more of a novelty than true raw racing. But if we get pleasantly surprised and not opposed to it, you can see there's a lot of neat monuments, again, with the different museums, of course, the Capitol and stuff like that. So it'll be a very interesting idea and something that, again, IndyCar hasn't done a lot of this sort of a notable area. So curious to see how that comes together.
Yeah, honestly, with the hybrid, Detroit was really fun last year, even if it's not, pure racing, obviously, it hasn't been at Detroit. If we get something similar to that, I still think it'll be a success, just because a lot of the bumping and a lot of just the contact. You can have some rough racing around these tight corners, but yeah, I mean, we don't really know exactly how much space there's going to be. But yeah, as we get closer to the date, I mean, obviously they sent us this crappy AI, rendered junk that I'm supposed to gain anything from, which I'm not. So until then, we won't really have a great idea to what everything looks like. But it is exciting, obviously, very very controversial. We're not going to dive into all the politics of it, but as you can see, you're going by the Capitol building and by the Smithsonian. I believe you could see the National Monument, the big spire, and yeah, everything. So just, yeah, like I said, August 21st through the 23rd. So going to be quite the event for sure.
Moving on to another new track, and more notably, it's this weekend's track, the Java House Grand Prix of Arlington.
Yeah, so the streets of Arlington, which is a funny way of saying the parking lots of Arlington, is essentially a 2.73 mile street circuit using the parking lots and the surrounding streets between the AT&T Stadium, which is the home of the Dallas Cowboys, and the Globe Life Field, home of the Texas Rangers. So this track layout, I'll play the video in the background, is really, really, I think, a lot more promising. But it is very unique when you talk about IndyCar, because I think there's moments, as you'll see, where you have a more open track, but the little areas offshoot of the track are not grass or gravel or sand or any of the things we're used to seeing at places like Laguna Seca, Mid-Ohio, that really cause difficulties. And if this reminds you of anything, I think it's exactly what we think it is, which is F1 tracks. And, when you talk about track limits and all of these things, that has been instituted because of areas like this. And I don't think it's going to be rampant, but it is something worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of, 'cause to your point, like street courses have like concrete walls as their barriers. A lot of our road courses, like Mid-Ohio, Road America, have grass and other things that would more deter you from cutting those turns. But we have very few, maybe besides like the Indy road course, where we do have like true road banking enough of a room to make that kind of move. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's, for a street course, pleasantly surprised on the raciness of what it looks like. I think just from a general shape standpoint, kind of reminds me of Nashville with the large straight and then kind of a section to the left of it. But it's interesting too. I think I've heard a lot of positivity about just more of the grander event. I know like Iowa, for example, was kind of labeled as this like event around the race. And you kind of have to find that fair balance of like concerts are fun, but people are going there to see the race. And you might kind of like make that sustainable, but I've heard a lot of like individual sponsors and stuff like that. So hopefully this will be a good revenue builder for the series as well. Yeah,
I know there is some controversy with them announcing this pretty much competing road race, street race, the same exact time as this race. It's been in the works for about 1.5 years now, is coming to life. So definitely a different contrast, but like I said, I think it's going to be a one-off with the Freedom 250 obviously being the 250th anniversary of the United States. So that where this is meant to be more of a long-established event. So yeah, I'm just looking through the website right now. There's going to be a T-Pain and Disco Lines concert on March 15th. So that's something that I guess T-Pain would be pretty funny. Hopefully we get some interviews with him like we did with Jameis a few weeks back. And then there's going to be an All-Time Low with Giovanni and the Hired Guns, which is another concert. That's on the 13th. So going to be definitely a lot of fan fest-esque stuff around the event. So I'm hoping they build it up pretty well. Arrow McLaren's bringing a big thing. I know Sunoco's been doing a lot with the hospitality suites. So exciting, and hopefully makes for a really good race. And that's what I'm worried about most. But the most unique thing about this is that we're moving into a unique qualifying format that actually not super unique, but it's something that we've been, uncommon for NASCAR or IndyCar, which is a 1-lap empty track qualifying for Fast 6. So if you guys have ever watched some tight road courses, it's kind of a headache seeing all of these cars on the track at the same time, trying to get space to lay a lap down, and you essentially end with this like last minute and a half of the session. Everyone, their tires are to heat and they get one chance at it to run a really good lap. And this is going to kind of nix that, at least after the first, Fast 12 and the first round. So some things to note. I believe they'll have 1 lap to get it up to speed. I don't know the exact details on that. They didn't really note that, but everyone will have essentially 2 to 3 laps to run 1 hot lap, and whatever your time is, it starts with the 6th place runner from the previous round all the way down to the provisional pole, and then they sort it out from there.
Yeah, I think to your point, there's definitely a trade-off. Like, and you lose the the spectacle of like a time-based thing where it's like, okay, who's going to be on the track the very last moment and get their lap in? But in exchange for that, you do get this moment where you only get one shot at it. So you are kind of like maximizing that one attempt. So there will be some drama again, kind of more like an oval style qualifying where like the spotlight is on a single car to deliver the best lap they can do.
Yeah, it's definitely going to feel more like oval qualifying. But yeah, so it should be a different thing and exciting to watch. Just a slightly different qualifying format that I think will really get the most deserving pole sitter for the race. But yeah, overall, really exciting. And this race will be, let me look here, will be on Sunday, March 15th at 12:30 Eastern. So obviously around 15 to 20 minutes after that set time. So midday, hopefully the weather is pretty nice. I mean, this is luckily a little milder time in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But overall, just exciting to have a new event. I mean, to have 2 new events in 3 weeks. Obviously, Phoenix has been on the schedule before, but not since we've been covering it. And Arlington being a big event. So a lot of new things happening in IndyCar, which is not a thing we say very often.
Yeah, I think even one more tidbit on top of that is the 2 more in a new region. I mean, the South and Southwest are not areas we've had a lot of IndyCar presence. I mean, we're very much a Midwestern
or the East Coast
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna be a bit, and then obviously you mentioned like the McLaren stand. I think Pato Award's got a nuts fan base. So to have like some more folks in regions where they are, like he's pretty popular. It'd be good to see like that kind of fandom show.
Yeah, and we neglected to mention this last week, but we are moving from, we were moving from the Toronto Grand Prix all the way out to Markham next year or this year, which will be a little different. That has to do with the World Cup coming to town, and that'll be a long-term contract. So I don't know if we'll get back to Toronto around the stadium like we went to a few years ago or not. But for the foreseeable future, we are at Markham. Just wanted to note that. But yeah, outside of that, looking forward to next week's event, and then we have a week off, and then we head to Barber. So pretty busy first month, and I'm glad you guys are sticking with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else, Al?
Nope. All
right. With that, I'm Jake Langdon.
And I'm Alan Langdon.
And we'll catch you soon, race fans.